Alright, so there is a serious problem with Ben Simmons. I'm sure you've already heard about the wide open dunk he passed out of to avoid getting fouled, and I think he has some serious issues. It's something that's definitely on par with Markelle Fultz's free throw yips back in the day. It is an interesting story though. How did the Sixers manage to pick both Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz, back-to-back number 1 draft picks, who both turned out to have horrendous shooting issues? Don't get me wrong, Ben Simmons isn't a bad player, and neither is Markelle Fultz. Ben's an amazing defender, and he's still a really good playmaker as well. I just don't think he has the necessary skill set to help this team make a serious championship run. It's just the lack of an outside shot, inconsistent free throws, and clogging up the paint from one of the best centers in Joel Embiid. Now the question is, should we trade him and have a mini reset on the team next season, or do we try and fix his inconsistent shooting and bad mentality, and in turn, make him into a better player? I think either of these options will work, however I think it's probably more interesting if we scout a trade and see where we can go from there. So, how do we do that? Well, there are a few options that are actually open to us. One that's been talked about a lot in the media has been CJ McCullum for Ben Simmons straight up, but I don't think that really solves anything for us. We aren't really getting enough back on the defensive end, and I'm worried that because CJ's turning 30 before next season, and he's still locked up until 2024, that poses a few issues. Damian Lillard would obviously be amazing, and I would take that in a heartbeat, but I don't think the Blazers accept that unless we load them up with a historic amount of draft picks. Ben's trade value has plummeted quite a bit, and I don't actually know what it sits at right now, and that's a bit scary. I think people are forgetting that he actually was an all-star this year, and the media has basically looked at his playoff performance and turned him from a potential franchise superstar, the next LeBron James, from his rookie year, and now the conversation is around whether the Philadelphia 76ers need to offload draft picks to give him away. That's obviously absurd, but the conversation is definitely still there. While this rebuild will be a bit of a longer term thing, I still want to keep it realistic, and hopefully we can win a few back-to-back championships and create a dynasty with this new team. So to start that, let's hop into 2K and jump into the trade finder and see what we can pull together for a Ben Simmons trade. Alright, so we've just jumped into the trade finder, and as you can see, there's a decent trade here, but I feel like we're taking too much away from the Bucks in this deal, and I think that's a common theme as we start to go through a few of these teams. However, one interesting one I found was Markelle Fultz for Ben Simmons. Now I know we just gave up Markelle Fultz to the Magic quite a while ago, and I think it would be somewhat interesting if we took Terrence Ross out of this trade and brought in someone like Gary Harris, whose contract does expire at the end of the year, which is worth around $20 million, but it would definitely be an interesting prospect to bring back, especially after he's come back from this torn ACL. It's a trade that we can keep an eye on, but I'm not sure that bringing Markelle back will actually solve anything. That being said, we do have a few other options in the trade finder. The Spurs trade pops up with DeJounte Murray and Jakob Poeltl, but we have to give a first round for that, and I'm not 100% convinced. And then there's the CJ trade, but we already talked about that one too. So if the trade finder doesn't really give us anything good, what can we draw up for a Ben Simmons trade? Well, Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren could be an interesting option. This would give us a replacement starting point guard with serviceable defense, playmaking, and solid ball handling with Malcolm Brogdon, and it would also give us a potential starting small forward with TJ Warren. The good part about this one is it wouldn't stitch up the Pacers that much either. They'd get Ben Simmons and Caris LeVert to split the playmaking duties, and they'd have a good little squad over there. Our second option is probably the one that will equally improve us now as much as it does into the future. The Oklahoma City Thunder have shown no real urgency in preparing for a serious playoff push, and they continue to haul draft picks, as evidenced by the latest Kemba Walker deal. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an up-and-coming star who would slot in perfectly around the guys we have now. He'd be able to fill the shoes of Ben Simmons on the playmaking end, while bringing a lot more efficiency to the table, and obviously he'd be able to shoot the ball. I'm sure he's going to get a little irritated by the tanking antics of Oklahoma City, and that could be something to take advantage of, even if we do have to give up some draft capital. The final option would be a Hail Mary, and it'll surely be a blockbuster that'll be talked about for years. Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, and 3 to 4 first round picks for Damian Lillard. It would be a shame to get rid of the up-and-coming Tyrese Maxey, but we're getting back one of the absolute best point guards in the league, and a proven playoff performer who is on contract until 2025, at which point he'll be 35 to 36 years old. Regardless, he's still an absolute gun who would slot in perfectly with this Sixers team. He averaged 28.8 points per game last year and was actually almost a member of the 50-40-90 club, which is a very hard club to get into. But if the Blazers say no, there's not really anything we can do about that, and we'll have to figure something else out. So, those are our 3 options. Next episode, we'll look at pulling the trigger on one of those 3 trades and discuss the rest of the team as we head into the draft with the 28th and 50th picks.